Hey guys, and welcome to the final part 4 of making this Ateez Jumanji box. So basically we're here for this last part. I'm making the cover pieces. I did have a board underneath, the one that I cut, which is why you see the picture of it all over again. I did it that way just to make sure none of the pieces fell through the honeycomb grid in the Glowforge like it was in the sample ones that I did. And I didn't want to lose any of the pieces. Sorry about the cord there in the screen. I ended up getting a dummy battery that you can just plug in and it convinces your camera you have infinite battery life. So I was hoping this would help fix me getting so focused in my work and the whole thing stops recording or the battery dies and I don't even notice it. So right now I'm staining all of the little island looking pieces and the outer surround piece the same stain I used on the actual board, or not board, but the actual wood of the box. So it's a nice dark walnut. I did about 2 coats on it because I wanted to make sure it was dark, and if anything, maybe a little hue darker than the actual cover of the boxes when they're closed, the actual board. So maybe it would stand out a little bit more. And then we're going to go into the other little decal pieces, the compass and the hourglasses. And I've been calling it an hourglass compass, the one that goes in the top right. And I'm going to be painting these. Antique gold is the color. But right here, it's what is called a grit paste. I ended up not quite liking how it turned out, but in my mind, I thought the grit paste would add a little bit of kind of sand, gritty texture to some of the hourglass pieces to make it look like sand had already kind of come through the hourglass and things like that. But in my opinion, looking at it at the end, it doesn't actually really look like that. But yep, here I am. I went through probably 6 different types of gold paint before I landed on the antique gold. I made sure to do like swatches of all the paints and things like that. But one thing I learned in art school, which I always think of in the back of my mind, is sometimes when you put the same green box next to a different color, that green's going to end up looking different. Sometimes when you put colors next to each other, the look of that color can look slightly different. So instead of it being this, even though it's the same, say, color next to like 5 different other colors, they're all going to look a little different. I don't know the theory behind it. I never went to graphic design classes. I just remember it from school. At that time, I knew a lot of graphic design students because I was in another part of the art department. But here I'm trying to put that grit in the little square areas. It didn't really end up showing or causing any kind of effect. So definitely scrapping that on my next version. I kind of dubbed this box my tester sample box. So I learned so much going through it and making this box. And I ended up tweaking quite a few things, and I'm in the process of making a second and final box, which I'm going to call my official box, with all the changes that I made and things I learned from making this sample box. Anyways, I totally don't like the grit paste later on. I still carry through for it. And then I'm just painting that gold on the entire front sides. I paint it on the insides as well. So no matter what angle you kind of look at these cover pieces, it's going to look gold. So I basically just didn't paint the bottoms. That's about it. And I do that for all the shapes, all the letters, and all the little knick-knacky pieces. So for a while here, I'm going to be painting all of these. So enjoy, and I'll see you at the next part. So now all the little pieces are done, and it's time to assemble this cover. I end up kind of just putting the pieces on there to put the mesh back where they go. And I did keep a piece that was cut out so I can make sure the pieces in the center are assembled in the correct areas. And I end up using an amazing glue. I don't really like how it works because it just comes out in big chunky globs. But it's E6000 glue. A lot of people use it for a lot of stuff. It's industrial strength glue, and it is some strong stuff. Now, one thing here you can probably see on the cover that I ended up not quite liking is when I did the painting of the stitches, when I was wiping it away, it kind of made this white tint around the whole area. So I'm thinking next time I will do those white paint areas first and then stain over it, so it won't give it like that smoky fog look. So that should take care of that issue. And then up here, I tried staining some of it to see if it would fix it. It kind of did. I kind of start sweeping over it a little bit. It took it down a little bit, but not by much. I mean, right now it does look pretty good at the final product of the whole look of it, but I still would have liked it if it was not so whitish around it. I mean, clearly it helped it a lot, but again, it's probably just personal preference how you like it. So, yep. I'm going to now glue all of these pieces down. Again, with that E6000 glue. Pros and cons a lot to this glue. Definitely it holds things like nobody's business. It'll hold for sure. Downside, it's kind of a hard material to work with, hard glue to work with. I really like that it dries pretty fast to a point where it sticks, but I still give it at least about 12 hours to dry fully before I would really start tugging, pulling, or pushing on things. That big block is a big box of brad nails. It is heavy, and I ended up using it a lot as a weight because I don't really have a lot of heavy weighted items in my craft space. Because it's a lot of just paints and other things like that. So I really didn't have anything heavy other than that. They're the nails I ended up using for this project anyways. So I couldn't find my tweezers either for the life of me, so I ended up using pliers to hold some of these small delicate pieces. Because with the glue, when I opened it, it just started flooding glue out. So instead of wasting it, I put some of it on a post-it note here and then just dabbed it in there. Usually it stays pretty good and still usable for a little while. I wouldn't say a little while is a long time, I'd say like a couple minutes. And then again, just sticking down pieces and wiping away some of the glue parts. The only other downside to it is any glue that kind of seeps out leaves kind of a shine, and I feel like a shine doesn't really go with this, so I tried to scrape up or pick up any pieces that glued out, so it didn't leave like a shiny effect to it. But yeah, I guess let's finish putting these parts together. little bit of everywhere. So here I am covering, painting one piece. I believe it's a pale yellow is the color. I know in a lot of the reference images it was a little bit more like a burnt orange or a yellow orange. But again, I kind of was thinking the same effect as that antique gold, that once I have the greens and the other pieces against this won't look as a vibrant yellow. Plus I like that it was more on the pale side, and yeah, so I ended up picking that for my color. There is a mistake cut there, because my Glowforge accidentally cut another circle, but next part are these little mini cubes. They're about 1 inch in size, and I'm staining them as they're going to go inside the box to prop up the game board so it doesn't end up sitting so low to the bottom. So it sits up higher, kind of looks a little bit more flush with the box. Here is a glued down gem, is our gold middle gem. It's just a green window vinyl, is what they called it on Amazon. So it's just a nice light transparent green, very flexible. It comes in like a rolled sheet. Really, really nice. I really ended up liking it. The doming effect that I was hoping for, it was just causing so many problems when I was doing tests. So I thought this is kind of the best option financial wise, as well as I think it came out looking quite nice as well. And then I just stain the bottom of the board just so when you take the game board off, it doesn't stand out or look funny, that it's still the a natural birch wood. So yep, forest or fresh foliage and holly leaf are the two paint colors I picked for my dark and light green for the leaves here. I ended up gluing these leaves down with the wood glue. Do not recommend. Since the wood glue takes at least about an hour to semi-harden, and then it says to give it about 24 hours to fully cure and get its full strength. Yeah, I ended up having to find like anything and everything I could find weight-wise to basically pressure everything down. And then it ended up making this weird texture in areas where I had to pull the blanks, I guess you'd call it, areas, or those gap areas out of the wood. And then the first one I did, which is why this one's a little bit after a few steps, is because I knocked it on the floor and those leaves sprued everywhere and just couldn't figure out how to put it back together. So this is actually a second print, and then I used the blue tape while I was still in the Glowforge machine, I taped it, a nice big grid of it, to hold all of the pieces down, and then I basically splurted glue all over the back and flattened it to the yellow piece. Oh, there's my dad. He came to help me with a different project while I was painting this for our father-daughter bonding weekend. So yeah, I kind of took a break. And then on the side there on the left is a sheet of paper that is basically a printout of the game board, and then I highlight it in a light green and a dark green, so I knew which leaves would end up being dark green and which leaves would end up being light green, so I could paint all the dark ones in one round, all the light ones in another go, so it could be consistent from board to board as well. So I thought that was a smart little thing to do. And yeah, enjoy me painting it. It will flip to an angle from my left side because I figured when I looked back at the video's footage a little bit, yep, here we go, that you probably couldn't see me painting it because I'm right-handed and you're on my right side. So yeah, I'm going to finish painting this and on to the next thing after that. is now done. I ended up leaving the paths as the natural wood color. I ended up really liking it. I was going to paint it like the stitches white, but didn't like it. So here we are now cutting down the paper to the size for the side panels, as I've been kind of calling them. I didn't end up getting the cuts correct, yet they are and they aren't. I accidentally sized these ones for the next box that I'm making instead of this current one, so the size was a little off. But here I'm using a sewing machine, no thread in it, and I'm going to use it to puncture holes down the side. Now, a lot of the pictures and things I've found for these side panels had some kind of pattern down the sides and the bottom and top. So I wanted to do the same, but I couldn't find a good picture from either the Fever Road show or from the actual Jumanji games, kind of one that I liked. I couldn't really see the ones at all in the Fever Road, so I kind of was like, hey, this can give it more of a organic feel to it instead of everything kind of just being printed or just plastered, just like I did with the cover. I wanted it to give it more 3D of a feel to it. So here I'm just threading it in, gluing the back instead of a knot, just so that, the paper won't sit up where the knot is. So I just use some strong glue and tape to hold it down. Here I'm going to start by doing it in a triangular design. Ugh, no. I ended up not liking it. Plus, time-wise, it was a lot. I think of a lot of things when I do this, because I've been getting a lot of good reception from people on Instagram and Twitter with the little pieces that I posted of this. Great response. So I was like, if I end up making these, I didn't want it to be so much labor time in areas, because of course labor costs money, and so I end up getting part of the way through and deciding no. So I take a pair of scissors and I'm going to cut it all off and start over. What I ended up deciding I liked, here's my nice fabric scissors. I went in at this in like 4 different ways. But I ended up deciding I like this angular pattern, so I ended up having it angle away from the text. So it won't be the same on the right. The right side will be angling again away from the text, just like the left side is. And then for how much thread I used, I basically pulled the thread the full length of the piece of paper twice and cut it there. And it was more than enough thread. I usually ended up having maybe about 1.5 inches left of thread. Sometimes I did a little extra thread just to be on the safe side, because I don't like when it gets too tight on the ends. And then you can, because I like a good sized needle to do this. So yeah, I do that on both sides. I'll end up pausing it because it was a little awkward, kind of forward and angled trying to sew this on screen. But yeah, I'm going to end up sewing both of the sheets of paper and then we're going to glue it down. Alright, so here we are, final steps of this whole lot. So I'm gluing down the corner pieces that I stained that again are going to boost up the center game board so it's not sitting so far down. Because in the original, in the Fever Road, they had like a tablet or something there to play different things on the dual screen. Of course, I'm not putting a tablet in mine, so I needed something to help boost it up. So that's what I did. And then I used the E600 because I wanted a way, because the board fits so tightly, a way for people to pick the game board up, so if they wanted to hide something underneath it. I also end up putting a light in there to help the jewel kind of shine more. and things like that. So if you want to put anything in there, so I just glue down a little brown ribbon. So I can grab the ribbon to pull the board up in like a corner, and then I can just pick the whole thing up. And then I'm just kind of cleaning it up because again, I don't want a huge glossy shine space. And now we're going to glue down the side panel. So again, I just grab the extreme glue stick after I'm done cutting this paper down to fit to size in that little box area, which I ended up having to cut it down quite a lot. So yeah, and then we're going to tape those in, not taping the glue in. I have to use my other cutting machine too, because those sheets of paper are pretty long, and that when he does a 12 by 12, and this is like 4 by 17, I think, about. And then I'm just using like a little putty knife-ish thing, or whatever they call them in the art craft area, to help kind of spread the glue, flatten the glue down. And then I'm going to go back through with the heavy brad nails box there and kind of use that to help flatten everything down. But that's pretty much the whole thing. There's only 2 little things I ended up missing and adding to this. The little closed hook holders. I ended up forgetting to add those, so of course I'll be adding those later. As well as I want to add have it say Ateez behind the jewel, so when the light comes through it says Ateez or Ateeny. But that's the box, and I will be doing an official look through the whole thing, nice close-ups on the second one I'm making, which is going to be the one I officially sell. So if you have any questions, concerns, or anything like that about this whole process, let me know. And again, like I said, I am going to be selling these boxes once I get the official one finished with all the things I learned from this, to make it better and look a lot nicer, as well as I'm going to be doing mystery boxes, which is going to be a box filled with 8 items themed around Ateez Fever and Fever Road, the show. So definitely keep a lookout for that, as I will do a video on that whole thing when they are done. Hope you enjoyed this little making of project. Like, subscribe, and share if you want. And until my next video. Bye, guys.